offensive coordinator Walt Bell. Same thing. We'll go straight into questions for him. You got the microphone. Who wants the first? Go Joe right here.
Hey, Coach. Just during the spring and during the summer, working with the quarterbacks, how have all three done, and maybe just areas where they made the most progress?
Yeah, especially in the spring with, you kind of had DeAndre in a little bit of a limited role, so he was more mental reps every day. He was the guy kind of back there in the back, 10 yards behind everything, so I thought he did a great job managing his mental reps. You could really see him taking advantage. He probably only got to throw 30, 40 balls in 7-on-7 situations, but just to have him back there taking mental reps, starting to get the mental mastery of the system a little bit. And then physically, between James and Bailey, I thought both those guys did a great job. I thought Bailey Hockman had his best 4 practices, the last 4 practices. So I think there's going to be great competition going into camp. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to do very much with them in the summertime. But those guys are anxious to learn. Just the amount of time those guys have put into kind of our base install. All summer long, those guys have been repping day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and kind of keeping everything. So when we get out there, it's not so much as Coach Taggart kind of alluded to it earlier, but we're not teaching ABCs anymore. We're able to go correct things and start teaching the details of the job, the XYZs of the position. And a lot of things that you're not able to get to just solely because they're line, where to line up, what to do. Now it's how do I do my job better. And so I'm excited to see that, especially integrating these young guys in. But all 3 of those kids have done a wonderful job, and excited to see who becomes a quarterback.
As far as the breakdown of snaps, will it be all 3 getting equal with the first team the first week?
Coach Taggart and I, every day that thing will be changing. That'll be different. But all 3 of those kids will definitely get a chance because they've earned that right. And so excited to see who does what with what reps. But as we move forward, every day's a competition. Every rep they took in the spring, every rep they ever do anything of, whether it's individual, team, group, 7-on-7, doesn't matter. Every one of them's great, just like it's a game. And so we've got tangible evidence about who does what well, and so again, just that competition will be ongoing, and all 3 of those kids will get a chance to win a job.
All right, we'll go Safid on the right side.
Coach, 32 at the goal line, run or pass?
It depends on who you're playing. There's a lot more that goes into that. I just know how I'm designed and how I grew up. Hopefully, if we're in the same situation that where we got a yard to go win the football game, hopefully we run the football. But you got to earn that right. You earn that right. You earn the respect. You earn that in fall camp. That trust that when our lives are on the line, when the program, every coach, every fan, when our team, when you have those types of choices, you earn that in fall camp. And so number one, it depends on a lot who you're playing, what do they do, and it also depends on what you're good at, and that's what fall camp's for, so we can figure all that out, and more importantly, find out who are the guys that we can trust. That's going to be the ultimate goal of fall camp, especially offensively. For us, it's just to identify the guys we can trust. And how do you do that? Does your position coach trust you to make your unit better? Your teammates trust you to play as hard as you can possibly play. If you can do those 2 things, we'll have a chance. So, but whether we run it or throw it, you guys heard the boss man earlier. That's up to him. And it's my job to give him as much good information as I possibly can on game day. But that's up to coach.
We'll go to Lane in the far very back.
Coach, technically, guys come in different places, different ways they've learned. But as far as intangibly, what are you looking for from your quarterback? Some of the intangibles you like to see.
Yeah, for me, the ultimate job description of quarterback is as follows. Okay, the job description of quarterback is make the other 10 guys better. Okay, and to me, who can do that at a higher rate, that's going to be the guy that you entrust to be the quarterback. And for me, there's a couple ways that you do that. I think number one, you lead from the front. You can't lead from the back. You got to be a guy that, and when I say leadership, I don't mean a yeller and a screamer, because everybody is their own person. Everybody has their own way. Everybody has their own style. But I think you've got to be a guy that your teammates can trust. And I think you earn that in a multitude of ways, whether it's how you work, whether it's how you speak to people, the relationships that you create. But again, I go back to make the other 10 guys better. And some of that is, you got to know who they need you to be that day, where they need you to be a cheerleader, they need you to be a friend, they need you to be a confidant, they need you to be a yeller and a screamer, you know. I think those are some of the tangibles, you know, or intangibles, you know, that you kind of rest on. Who has great people skills, you know, and then who can be a great teammate, you know, and who can be who the other guys need you to be, you know. And then football stuff, you know, that kind of takes care of itself, you know, who can drive their eyes in the right place, who can take the right drop, and who can react accordingly, you know. And then, but intangibly, you know, the kind of things I always look for every day, you know, who can be the same guy every day, who can be even keel, you know. When you get people like me that are like super type A, ultra organized, you know, that's a good thing at times, but it's also a bad thing because typically those people don't handle failures as well. You know, and so we want a guy that's nice and even keel. He's the same guy practiced every day as the same guy is on Saturday. And so, you know, even keel personality, a guy that can fail well, you know, and get his teammates to respond.
We'll go to Jeff in the back left.
Coach, we know Coach Taggart said he'd be calling plays on game day, but in terms of scouting, week to week, self-scouting, putting together a game plan, what will your responsibilities be?
Yeah, I look at coordinate, you know, especially in this situation, it is a verb. You know, and my job specifically, you know, and honestly, having not been through a game week with Coach Taggart yet, you know, I can't tell you exactly, but I think my job this season is as follows, and that's to do everything that I can possibly do, whether it be from efficiency, time management, organization. My job is to do everything that I can possibly do where it is as easy as it can possibly be for him on game day. You know, and that's my job, you know, to make sure from an organizational standpoint, from a teaching standpoint, from a mentorship standpoint, that we're doing everything we can do for our 11 kids on offense to make sure that all Coach Taggart's got to do is go out there and call it, and it happens the way he wants it to. So, not real sure yet, but we'll know real soon.
Go to Wayne right here in the front.
Coach, the wide receiver depth at Florida State has been a little lacking over the past couple of years, and in the spring, you know, the injuries, there were just so many reps to go around and just not enough wide receivers. You guys brought in a pretty big receiver class. Just how much are those guys going to be able to play this season, and just how much do you plan on using them?
Yeah, they're not going to have a choice. You know, it's the we will lead the horse to water and we will make him drink. You know, those young guys, they're not going to have a choice. You know, they're going to have to get a lot of valuable reps. A lot of those younger guys got a lot of valuable reps in the spring. You know, but especially the kids that got here this summer, you know, it's amazing how hard, you know, just how much you've seen those guys study installs, how much you've seen those guys kind of invest in themselves to make sure that when they go out there, knowing that, you know, you're a snap or two away from being out there on, you know, Monday night against Virginia Tech. I think those kids are, you know, all those young wideouts are doing a great job in terms of just preparing themselves for just this first practice. You know, and so I'm excited. I'm like Coach Taggart. You know, I can't wait to go out there and meet at, you know, 6, 7 o'clock and get rolling, and, you know, get out there in the morning and watch those guys work. You know, and you know, especially I think for those young kids, you know, and people don't talk about this very much, but I just, there's, you know, so many of those kids apply so much pressure to themselves that if they'll just go out there and relax and remember it's a kid's game and actually have a good time, that generally will allow those kids to fail a little bit better. You know, and understand there's no way to mastery other than failure. You know, you just wake up in the morning the best ever. You know, you got to have a lot of rough times to get there, and just as long as kids mentally can handle those mistakes, come back the next day and keep fighting, we'll be all right.
Go to Tayshawn on the far right.
Coach, who do you expect to start at tackle, and if you don't know yet, who's in the round?
Great question. You know what? Because my answer is probably going to be exactly what you think it is, and that's we're not real sure yet. You know, you know, I feel like we've got a chance to be really good at the tackle position. I feel like that we'll have, you know, 8, 9 guys that we can really trust by the time that, number one, we're all healthy. Number two, that everything is said and done with camp. You know, are we incredibly deep at the position? No. But do I feel like that we'll have, you know, the depth needed, you know, to get through a season and play the type of people that we're going to have to play? Yeah. In terms of who the tackles will be, it really all depends on kind of who wins those jobs inside, you know, which will allow us some freedom to possibly move some guys around. But I can't tell you, but the good news is we're going to start finding out here in about 24 hours. So we, you know, we're excited, but we've got work to do there, but not in, you know, not in a way that any of us are fearful of. You know, we'll find the 2 or 3 right guys, go out there on the edge and go do the job, and I feel like we've got the guys here to do it. It's just who's it going to be and in what order.
All right, go to Ryan.
Hey, Coach. I know Coach Taggart talked about seeing your offense on film and that you guys did a lot of similar things. Were you a little surprised when you guys actually put the playbooks together just how similar your concepts kind of were, or were you a little excited to see that there were a couple wrinkles that maybe he had and you didn't, or vice versa?
No, I think it's been really good. You know, first and foremost, you know, when I got here, it was really important to me that I learn it exactly as he did it. You know, it wasn't a come in here and try to put my stuff with his stuff. It's no, let's learn his stuff because that's what he's going to call and that's how he wants it done. You know, and then along the way, if there's something that we can possibly make better, then you know that's up for discussion. But you know, for me coming in, it was really important just to learn his system. You know, how does he talk? What's the verbiage that he uses? What does he call this? What's he call that? How does he want this communicated? You know, so I could communicate to our players that way. But no, we from my past, you know, growing up as a player of Middle Tennessee, when there really weren't a lot of spread one back and a lot of offenses, you know, when Larry was a young offensive, Larry Fedora was a young coordinator there, and Blake Anders, who's now head coach of Arkansas State. But this is all I've ever done. You know, spread one back, play real fast, and play real wide. You know, so really similar. Just for me, it was really more just learning new terminology and making sure that just even in free communication, when he or I are sitting in a room, that when I say something, it's something that makes sense to him. You know, and so that's really what that thing was about. But no, incredibly similar in terms of what we really believe from a philosophy standpoint on offense. But even more than that, I think why I'm so excited to be here is I'm around a guy that believes in all the same things that make me want to coach. He's a guy that's invested in our kids. Like there's every coach in America is going to stand up here and say family, and they're going to talk about they love their guys, but no, it's like a daily, like a real investment in the well-being and the growth of our kids, not just out there on the grass, but as human beings. And so just to be around a guy that it makes you that much more convincing of a salesman, which is also called teaching, and just when there really is a mission that's bigger than just what happens out there in front of people on Saturdays, and so just football, how he lives his life and how he treats our kids, it's been a great marriage so far.
We'll go to Aslan at the back right.
The team will naturally gravitate towards whoever's making the most plays out there at the quarterback position, and whoever you guys put out there, they'll get behind. But do you sense that, not being here last year, but do you sense that the guys on the offensive side of the ball have like a deeper maybe appreciation for James Blackman just because he was the guy that was thrown out there last year and had to kind of be baptized by fire? Do you see any sort of way that they gravitate with his leadership?
No, here's what I can tell you. I'm going to answer your question in two parts just to make sure that I do this the right way. One is James is an incredible kid. The way his teammates feel about him is 100% completely deserved. The second part is I wasn't here, and I'm a guy that I truly believe that when a new staff comes in, when there's a new group, that if you listen to everybody else, you're going to miss a lot of things. It's amazing what coaching changes can do to human beings. I'm a perfect example of that. Blake Anderson changed my life. I'm a football coach because of Blake Anderson. Blake Anderson was a position coach and just became as important to me as my own father. And I wasn't that guy before him, and I think that's kind of the ultimate goal number one of this business is to make sure that you also pass along that influence, So I don't care what happened here before. I really don't. I care what happened the day I got hired and moving forward. And I think all three of our quarterbacks, possess different skills. All three of them have ways to win a football game. And who they gravitate to, that is a big part of the equation. And that will be a big part of the equation moving forward. You always kind of hear me kind of use this analogy. I've never once talked about a depth chart in 6-7 years of coaching quarterbacks or 5 or 6 years of being a quarterback. I don't think I've ever talked about the depth chart to the quarterbacks. Because the other 10 guys, the offense, about 12, 15 practices from now, a guy will walk in there and everybody will know that's the dude. And then if some other guy walks in there, they'll kind of get the side eye from me, like, are you sure you want him in here with us right now? They make those choices, and so to me that's the goal of quarterback is, how quickly can you get that done and how quickly will those other guys know? And so that's what camp's for, but I just be really clear, I don't care what happened, I don't care who played, I don't care who they liked, I care about what these kids do from the time we get hired, you know, to the day that we're not here anymore. You know, and I think all three of those kids have done a great job. You know, they're all trying to grow as people and as quarterbacks, and you know, that's why I'm excited about Cam.
We'll go to Corey over here on your left.
Well, how hard do you think it's gonna be for you on game days, since you have been calling plays for 5, 6 years now, to maybe take a step back and not be in Willie's ear all the time? You said your personality is type A, so how?
Well, no, I'm very type A about being the best employee that I can be. Okay? I'm very type A about taking care of my new wife.
Right.
You know, I'm very type A about being a, you know, my granddad was in the military. I got a brother in the military. You know, I'm very good at following instruction. You know, I take pride in being a great employee. You know, and doing everything that guy asks me to do, no more, no less. You know, and that's his role. That's his job. My job is to provide him with the best information that I can possibly do. So there's no qualms. I'm not going to be the antsy guy out there spitting out stuff and trying to. That's not me. My job is to be the best offensive coordinator that I can be, so he can go do his job to the best of his ability. So you know, when I say I'm type A, that you know, whether it's how I work or how we're organized or you know, whatever it may be, you know, but in no way, shape, or form will that ever manifest itself in a way that's destructive to us on game day.
And not to disparage the places you were before, but what is it like for you as an offensive guy to have this much talent in the skill position to work with?
Yeah,
How much fun is that for you?
Yeah, you know, our last year at Arkansas State, you know, where you just kind of knew that even though different level of competition in conference on a week-to-week basis, but you kind of know that you know you're loaded up pretty good and you're going to have a good year. 2011 Southern Miss, our last year there, kind of felt that way. This is the first time in a long time I feel like if we can stay healthy outside the hash marks, if we can, you know, we got, even though there may be some names that people don't know very well right now, we've got a chance to be really special. We can stay healthy and, you know, we can get the quarterback to distribute the football where it's supposed to go. You know, I feel like we got great running backs, we got tight ends, we got, you know, great receivers. We're just young, you know, and you know, can we put all those pieces together and you know, how quickly can we learn? How quickly can we kind of assimilate to the system and really start to master stuff? You know, and that's really coming out of spring is just how many reps it takes to get good. You know, and so that's what we're trying to get done right now. But you know, really excited about the pieces we have in place. Just you know, some luck's involved. Got to stay healthy, and you know, you got to handle your business.
You spoke about the young receivers in the spring and how much they've learned in the offseason. The guys who are coming in right now or coming in this summer that you hope to contribute as well. What is the biggest thing they have to do to show you they can get on the field?
Yeah, you know, it's going to sound really stupid, you know, because it is so simple. But I think one of the biggest adjustments, you know, the good news is 9 out of 10 high school teams in the country right now see a signal and play fast. You know, I mean, that's just kind of the way football is, you know. And when I first went to school, there weren't a lot of people doing that. You know, and now it's what everybody in the world does. From the NFL to Pop Warner football, there's people run zone read and don't ball screen. You know, but I think process time. You know, the ability to be efficient in transition. Ball carrier hits the ground, drive my eyes to the signal, get lined up, and snap it. You know, that small window, you know, for all those young kids, especially those first, you know, not necessarily the first 2 or 3 days, because they've kind of been doing that all summer and acclimating themselves, but when the install really starts to pile up, you know, and maybe a hamstring makes us move this kid to this spot and this kid to another spot, and the processing starts to like bog you down a little bit. I think the ones that can process the quickest and process the most efficiently, I think those are the kids that you kind of trust to go put out there. Therefore, those kids kind of get more reps. So to me, the biggest adjustment is the processing, you know, and that's for every young offensive skill kid, you know, especially quarterbacks. Not only you got to see a signal, process a signal, call for the football, but you got to execute all the things that we ask you to do, you know, play point guard. So I think the processing time for those young wideouts will be the thing, number one, that shocks them, and then number two, we've got to coach them through as moving forward.
All right, we'll go to Gene.
Coach, coming in, it seems like you and Coach Taggart had an emphasis on establishing the run. It seems like you have that confidence, a big priority for you guys offensively. What kind of a luxury it is to have 4 or 5 guys, obviously very talented at that position here, and then how will you guys in-game handle that rotation? Obviously, you're not gonna run one guy 50 times, so how will that be determined?
Yeah, the second part of your question, you know, can't really answer right now just because we haven't been through camp and they kind of haven't set their own depth chart yet. The first part of your question, you have got to be able to run the football. It doesn't matter what style. It doesn't matter if you're going to be like Stanford, you're going to be in 22 and 32 and, you know, run John Power, or you're going to be in empty and run your quarterback. It doesn't matter, but you have got to be able to run the football. You know, and I think that goes not only for us offensively, but if your defense is going to be able to stop the run, they got to get, you know, they got to stop it in practice. You know, the only way to learn to stop the run is to get off blocks and tackle people. And so I think not only are you setting yourself for success, but you're also setting the success of your defense by how physical that you can run the football. So number one, I think that's just a philosophy thing. If we're going to run the football and stop the run, that's got to be something that you're practicing. You got to do every day. You know, in terms of the depth, I've never been anywhere, you know, where we had, you know, I've been places where you play 4 or 5 guys, but I don't know if I've ever been anywhere where we had 4 or 5 that's talented. So really excited. But the one thing I can tell you is that it always is going to take that many. That's just, you know, it's the only position left in this game where nobody cares. You know, quarterbacks protected, receivers protected, you know, kickers protected, you know, defensive player protected, running backs ain't nobody protecting them. You know, and so it's one of the kind of the last positions in this game, you know, where there's still an aspect of violence to it, where you know that those guys aren't going to be able to carry it 20, 30, 40 times a game, you know. And so, you know, I'm excited to have all those guys. I'm excited to see how it shakes out. And on top of that, not only have we got a bunch of good players, all 4 of those, I mean, 4 or 5 of those kids, all good dudes, you know, good people, you know, and they're fun to coach. And, you know, until they prove otherwise, you know, I expect that room to be really successful.
Do you know yet if you'll be in the box during games?
I believe so. I could 99.9% say with confidence that I'll be in the press box. Prefer it up there, and then on top of, you know, if Coach Taggart's calling the plays from the football field, you know, probably my way to help him the most, you know, is to kind of be his eyes and, you know, in the press box and make sure that he's getting all the information that he needs.
We'll go to Joe, front line.
Well, I know you just talked about running backs and establishing the run, but with your inexperience at tight end and wide receiver, how much of a benefit can they be in the passing game, especially with what Cam can do catching it out of the backfield?
Yeah, you know, and that is one thing that you know, I got asked a question earlier about you know, kind of Coach Taggart's system and how it came together. I think one thing that is really evident after being through a spring with Coach Taggart is how much the backs and tight ends are involved in the throw game. And I think that's a way that we can kind of create more touches even for that position, even if it's not necessarily me handing you the football. You know, and so really excited, you know, the ability to play 2 and 3 tailbacks at a time, you know, in terms of personnels, you know, I mean, and a lot of those kids also have, you know, like receiver-ish skills. You know, so not just throwing those guys the ball out of the backfield, but lining them up at receiver, in the slot, outside, inside. I mean, we're able to do all those things, and we're able to do all those things in the spring. So I think it's another way to create touches and create some mismatches as well.
We'll go Brendan right here in front.
Coach, you mentioned a little earlier about the intangibles at quarterback and how important that is. Maybe this is a little bit secondary, but the physical tools, the traits that you're looking for there, I guess, what's important? Mobility, arm strength, I guess, what are things that you're looking for in this offense?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Coach Tag's system is, you know, he had a kid like Quentin Flowers that, you know, had a certain set of tools in his toolbox that were a little bit different, and they had great success with him. And then he goes to Oregon, and they have, you know, a 6'6" kid that is a good athlete but not as good a runner, and they kind of build, you know, the system around his skills. You know, for me, in terms of their physical tools and what we're looking for, we're just looking for a winnable set of skills. You know, you always hear me talk about a quarterback's toolbox, and whatever tools in that toolbox are sharp. You know, there's always some that are sharp. There's always some that are a little bit dull. We got to continue to sharpen, and that's what practice is for. But we got to identify, you know, what those winnable skills are. You know, what are their sharpest tools, and making sure that when that guy, whoever that guy is that wins the job, then we put them out there on Saturday. We're making sure that we're not asking him to do something he doesn't do well. You know, or for lack of a better way to put it, that we're playing to his skills. You know, making sure that we're putting him in a position to be successful. Because if that kid is successful, typically the offense will be successful. And so I think in terms of what we're looking for, I don't think there's a cookie cutter mold. You know, I don't think there's a, you got to be this height, you got to run this fast, you got to do this, because for every one of those statements that I'll make, everybody in here can think of another guy that was a great quarterback that may not meet one of those criteria. You know, and so logically, not real smart of me to say that you got to look like this or do this or throw it like this or here. You know, I mean, I just think identifying, you know, their winnable skills and making sure that we cater those skills on game day. I think that's the biggest thing for us.
All right, we'll go back left to Tom.
Coach, what's it like to be one-on-one in a meeting with Coach Taggart? What does that look and sound like, and what's the interaction like, I guess, day to day?
Yeah, I think he's got a really special gift, and just kind of how he is in here. I think he's got a really special gift, you know, and it probably will help, you know, I'm sure, not probably will, but I'm sure it has, you know, helped him kind of create the cohesiveness with the staff. He has a way of being very direct and getting his point across in a way, but for some reason, you like him for it. You know, he, you know, I am not that way. You know, I just can't do that. You know, it's not my personality, not who I am, but he has an incredible way about him to communicate very directly, very clearly, and make sure everybody understands the message. But you got a smile on your face when you hear it, you know, and I think especially in today's, you know, and I've worked for plenty of coaches where that's not the way, you know, but just I think he's, you know, just his demeanor, you know, he's fun to be around. Not that, you know, there aren't things that we don't get coached on. I mean, that's his job, is to coach us. You know, not there's things that we don't get coached on and coached hard, you know, but I just think he's himself. He's very authentic and genuine. You know, he doesn't, you know, act one way in here and then, you know, completely change who he is, you know, when all the doors are closed and nobody else is around. You know, I just think just the authenticity of him, you know, is for me, you know, very refreshing, and made me even more excited to be here, you know, knowing that you're working for a good guy. You know, it makes you a lot better salesman and a lot more apt to buy into the mission when you believe in that guy. And, I think our kids can tell you the same thing.
All right, we got time for two more. We'll go to Sid.
Coach, before you met Coach Taggart, what did you hear about him from Coach Durkin at Maryland? Did you inquire about him?
No.
Did you know him at all?
I did not know Willie Taggart at all. I've told that story publicly. You know, I got a random text message after a game, you know, and then another text message in late December, and then we talked that night, and then he offered me the job on Monday night at Hilton at Perimeter Center in Atlanta, and I got my car and drove, you know, and you know, I don't mean this as a slight to Coach Taggart at all. I don't. I know that guy has scored a ton of points, and I know that his kids love him. And to me, that's all that I really needed to know. More importantly than that was it's Florida State. You know, and I do not mean that as a slight to Coach Taggart at all. But I used to run around my front yard and pretend to be Charlie Ward. You know, there's 6 or 7 places in the world that when they ask you to come, you don't ask questions, you just go, and this is one of them. You know, but I've got an incredible amount of respect just for what Coach Taggart did at South Florida. You know, in off-season studies, I think going into my second year at Arkansas State as the offensive coordinator, you know, studying those guys. Didn't know him from Adam, didn't call him, you know, but just really investing in some of the things they did, quarterback run game driven, because our quarterback at the time was a lot, you know, really similar to Quentin Flowers in terms of his winnable skills. So I'd studied them, you know, going into our second year at Arkansas State, you know, but just being an admirer of, again, I think the ultimate mark of a coach is, you know, how the kids play. You know, when I say play, I don't mean like, do they score or do they not score or this, but just watching them interact with our head foot, you know, with him. You know, I mean, they love that guy. And as long as you can get that kind of buy-in, it doesn't matter what you do. Triple option, throw it every play, run it every play, you'll find a way to be successful. And so I think part of the thing that makes me so excited is to be around a guy whose kids feel that way about it.
All right, last one, Tim on the front right.
You got to look at Coach Barnett's defenses at Michigan State the last couple of years. What are your impressions of them? How hard were they to prepare against? And do you see him kind of bringing those same things to Florida State?
Yeah, you know, I think in terms of preparation, how hard are they to prepare for? They're not really. They line up and they do what they do. But I don't think that's, again, you know, schemes and X's and O's. There's a million guys in this business that can do that. There's a lot of guys that are unbelievable on chalkboards. You know, I think what makes Coach Barnett and what made Michigan State so successful is everybody in the world knew where they were going to be. You know, they're going to line that, they're going to be in a 4 down front, you know, and they're going to play press on the outside, and the safety's going to be 8 yards deep, and they're going to be leveled off, and everybody could probably spit on the football, you know, and that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's not a whole lot of questions. I mean, they got a great 3rd down package, which I think is one of the things that's more underrated about those guys in terms of 3rd mediums and longs. But, you know, normal down distance, they don't do a whole lot. You know, but I think what makes them so special is how hard they play, you know, how they tackle. You know, I think one of the strengths about, you know, like you'll hear Coach Taggart say legal simplicity. I think one of the strengths about what Coach Barnett and those guys do is they're not always worried about what are we doing. You know, and because they're not always installing new stuff, and it's not, you know, 9 different defenses, or it's not, you know, 12 different calls, and normally there's 1 or 2 calls, man. And so when you're not teaching all the time scheme, you can teach what really matters. You know, tackling, turnovers, what the offense is actually trying to do to you. You know, and I think the strength of what they do is they have the confidence, you know, to not do a ton of stuff. You know, it scares some people to death when you don't feel like you got enough stuff on that little sheet, and, you know, to basically say you're not important. You know, I think they play very confidently, and when I say confidence, I mean, they don't care that you know. I mean, every coach in the country on offense can tell you exactly where they're going to be on 1st and 2nd down. You know, and they're still one of the top 10 defenses in the country every year. You know, it's how hard they play, the details in their jobs, you know, and how they play the game that makes them so special. You know, and you can see that happening right now. You know, and I fully expect, you know, as long as they can stay healthy and, you know, and things happen the way we need to happen over the next month, I fully expect those guys to be pretty good.
All right, thank you, Coach.